Alright, welcome back to another Krabby Dice Talks Romance about crowdfunding campaigns. And a couple of things before we start. Sorry for not being on video for quite a while. I was extremely sick for the last couple of weeks, so if I sound a bit weird or if I start coughing, well, you know why. Okay. Second, I'm thinking about changing this format to a weekly / bi-monthly format just to cover those games that really don't, in my opinion, deserve their 10-minute plus analysis video because they're pretty much straightforward and it's easy to talk about. Alright, so let's not waste any more time. By the way, before I forget, my usual intro, 100% my subjective take it with a grain of salt. I'm going to go through the gameplay, the value, what I like, what I don't like, and in the end, if I helped you guys out at all, why not consider subscribing to my channel. So let's not waste any more time. Let's tackle our first game today, which is Ragnarocks. Alright, well, Ragnarok's is going to be super easy to talk about. It's a really lightweight abstract game from the same designer of Santorini, so sort of follows the same style, except this one plays completely different. Alright, you're playing almost like a hey that's my fish type of thing, where your characters can move at like a rook or a bishop across the board, but after you move your character, you place one of these stone monoliths around you, and the whole point is to restrict the battlefield so that your guys end up in bigger zones so that you score more points. Alright, you're going to score equal to the amount of empty spaces in your finished zones. Alright, sort of like area majority style thing. Alright, so it's a 1v1 game. I cannot critique anything about the gameplay. It looks really simple, really engaging. What I love about abstract games, it uses the whole motto of easy to learn, hard to master type of thing, and that's really good. Now, the second reason I'm really excited about this game is I love Santorini because of the god powers, and this does the exact same thing, so it completely mixes up the game every time you play. So if you play a lot of other abstract games, it might get a bit boring after a while because the same thing over and over. It's like playing checkers over and over again. You know, it's a bit boring, but this one, adding the god powers, you know, different gameplay every time, who you're facing off will change up the gameplay every single time. Great addition. All right, so gameplay gets an A+ from me. Now let's talk about value, and this is where I have some issues. Alright, so let's start off by talking about one pledge level. It's $45, but it's really misleading because it's actually $60 because you're going to want the extra 2 add-ons that are available. Alright, so what are you going to get for $60? Sorry about that. So you're going to get your little 6 minis. These are little dudes that are going to move around the map. You're going to get your board, your insert, your 40 stone monoliths. One of the exclusives for this campaign are their 2 colored stone monoliths. Honestly, that's not a huge selling point for me. I just paint them myself, but it is what it is. In total, you're going to get about 40 plus cards. I believe 9 of them are exclusive to the campaign, so you get about 32 in the base game box, plus the extra 9 exclusives. And that's for 45, but what else are you going to get for the extra 15? Alright, so forget about the extra runestones, you're not going to want those. But the extra 15, what you're going to get is this Winds of Chaos expansion, which includes 9 more God cards and 10 of these mountains and 6 Viking cards. Sorry about that. And 2 dice. And then the other thing you're going to get is for $3, you're going to get 2 God cards. Now, before I go on, a little pet peeve of mine, whenever publishers do this is a message to all you publishers. If you offer 2 cards for $3, that's an instant turnoff. I don't want to back your game anymore. This is highway robbery. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. This is like you're trying to take advantage of the people trying to back your game and trying to get 2 card exclusive for $3. I mean, at least what they could have done is just made this whole package $15 and just add these 2 god cards to the bottom pack over here, so make it 11 mythological cards, and it would have been hidden within the $15. Alright, this is just stupid. Mini rant aside, let's go back to talk about the value. Alright, so is it worth $60 plus the $15-20 shipping? Now you're looking at $70 for a pretty simple abstract game, and that's where I have a bit of issues with the game. I don't know, man. I have personally the retail edition of Santorini. It's perfectly acceptable. You get 30 plus god cards in that one. I paid less than $30 for it. You know, the Kickstarter was $50 plus. You get the golden fleece and all that stuff, but that's all just extra stuff that you don't really need. And I'm sort of on the same boat with this one. You know, unless you really want these stone monoliths, and the extra, I think in total it's going to be 18 god cards if you get the expansion pack and the exclusives with this campaign, but then you are spending literally more than twice as much as you will be in retail. This in retail will ship for less than $40 guaranteed. I don't see much issues with that, just like Santorini and all that stuff. Alright, so that's my analysis. I mean, it's up to you guys. If you really want the exclusives, go for it. The other second reason I'm not excited to back this, I do have to mention this unfortunately, is I'm not a fan of Grey Fox Games at this point. They're having a ton of issues, production issues with their last few campaigns. Tsukiyumi Full Moon Down has been a complete disaster. I mean, that's a premium product. People are spending $200+ on that game, and the minis are awful. Army Men have better minis in that game. You know, misprints all over the place, issues in the rulebook. It's a complete mess. Reavers had sort of the same issue with the production, all that stuff. So add to that they're like 6 or 7 campaigns behind, and they're launching another one this week or next week, so they're going to be 7 campaigns behind. It's just, it doesn't give me a good feeling of where Grey Fox Games is going, but that could be just me. You guys can let me know below if you still trust them or whatever it is. All right, so let's not talk about this one. Let's go to the next one. All right, up next we have Meeples and Monsters from AEG. So this is a pretty simple bag building game. So let's talk about gameplay first. It's really similar to other bag builders, except it's more akin to a deck builder because you do have a whole discard pile. So it's not like Quacks to Quedlinburg where everything gets returned back to the bag every time. This one you're going to do more of a deck building style where you go through your bag, you know, you use the stuff, it goes to your discard pile. Eventually your bag's going to be empty. Throw your discard back in, shuffle it up just like you would in a deck builder. All right, you just keep looping around the table. When you're done your turns till the end game is triggered. All right, so this, honestly, again, just like the previous game, not much to critique. It looks like a really fun, you know, family weight game, and I call it a family weight game because it does have a lack of competition on the board. It's not a bad thing. It's a great game to play with your family, just because, you know, you look at this main board in the middle, it does sort of look worker placement style, but it's not worker placement style at all. You're just telling you your conversions. Again, like I mentioned before, after you're done, everything goes to your discard. All right, so everything's always free every single round for everyone to go in. So you can play with your sons, your daughters, you know, help them out on their turns, help them with their conversion. Everything gets to the discard, and just keep looping around. The only real competition in the game are the guys you're trying to kill on the outside of the board. These little minions get little bonuses here and there, but they constantly get replenished every single time you kill one. Another one comes, so, you know, not that much competition. Even the last bosses up here, you can all go kill the same ones to get the same bonuses, and so on and so on. So really lightweight, family friendly. Some of the mechanisms I really like. There's these quest cards that are really cool. They upgrade the special powers of the different types of meeples, so that's a great thing you're trying to do, so you can focus in on certain meeples to make them stronger. You can actually level up your meeples as well, so you can, I think there's 3 or 4 levels for each one, so you can, you know, upgrade your knight to level 2 knight, and then he's going to be even stronger, have a secondary power. I believe level 2 for every single character. They start getting powers. I think your level 1s are all vanilla, but that's pretty cool. So good system. I mean, I really have nothing much to critique. It just looks like a really fun game. Honestly, AEG at this point, they're one of my favorite lightweight medium style publishers out there. They're just really good and really competent. They, you know, their last 3-4 years worth of games in their catalogs are just really strong games. We're talking about Mystic Vale, we're gonna see later, but you know, Space Base, even Dice City I really liked. Just a lot of great games. Calico, Point Salad, Cat Lady, War Chest is amazing. Just some really strong games in their repertoire, and they really focus in on that medium weight market where their games just have one core mechanism, but it's really strong and really fun. So that's really great. I'm really excited to play this one. It looks like a fun game. Alright, that's really all I gotta say. I really can't critique anything. The only thing I could pretty much just critique is maybe the art. You gotta be a fan of the art. They're using this weird like painted on meeple type of thing. You're gonna see later on, like, well, these are the meeples, but you know, like the characters, they all look like meeples, drawn people on meeples. Like, look at this troll guy over here. You know, you gotta be a fan of that art, but it looks very cutesy and people are gonna like it. That's fine. The only other thing I can really mention is maybe the game is just way too grand or too big than it needs to be. Like, your own player boards are actually massive. I saw the Rado playthrough. They just don't need to be that big. Bigger than Terra Mystica, Terraforming Mars. There's not a lot of information on these boards. You know, playing this game, you know, just looking at it on the table, you're going to need more space than like Eclipse 2nd Edition. You're just going to need a lot of space, and it doesn't really warrant it being such a small, lightish type of game. But I'm probably in the minority. You guys are probably going to like it, or somebody's going to tell me that it's fine. Alright, so that's the gameplay. Not much to say. It looks like a really fun game. That's great. Other games, they have Point Salad, Mystic Vale, War Chest, Edge of Darkness, Tiny Towns. I can't forget Tiny Towns. That's a fantastic game. Probably my favorite family weight game from the last like 3 years. So that's good. So let's now switch gears, talk about value. And this is going to be a reoccurring theme for a lot of games today. Man, the publishers really need to give you good value to make you want to back the game. Just saying that you don't know if it's going to come to retail is not a good enough reason, in my opinion, ever to back a game. So what are they saying? They're saying it's going to be 50 bucks. For 50 bucks, you can get about 120 cards, 35 tiles, including the ones from the add-ons after, 152 meeples, the player boards, the bags, the main game board, extra cards here and there, the game box, the rulebook, so on and so on. So is that worth 50 bucks? Yeah, it's fair, but it's not outstanding. The only things they're offering are printed meeples and the embroidered bag. That's pretty much the only exclusives you're gonna get if this game comes to retail. One of the reasons they put on Kickstarter, they're like, we don't know if it's gonna come to retail. All right, but in the fact, they're like, well, if it does, then the tower expansion, the solo, will come as an add-on later in retail. So telling me that printed meeples and an embroidered bag is the only thing you're gonna offer me to get this early, it doesn't motivate me. I don't know how it is for you guys out there, but I'm not motivated to back it, even though I'm really interested in the game. I just rather wait for it to come out of retail and, you know, wait for reviewers to get their hands on to really tell me if it's a really good game. All right, so that's all I really got to say, and that's where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this. The second thing I really just have to mention about AEG, and the main reason I'm not backing it, is AEG at this point is pretty much well known for having a billion expansions for all their games. I don't think they release a game without thinking like we're going to release 4 or 5 different expansions for it, because that's where they're going to make a lot of money. So if this game becomes really popular and becomes really big, they're going to come out for sure with another expansion within a year, with a bunch of extra stuff, and you'll save even more money by getting the all-in with the expansions on the next Kickstarter. It's just the way it goes all the time. And even then, if it comes out to retail, because it's a good game, it'll probably be less than 60 bucks guaranteed in retail. I look at the contents of this box, I'm not blown away thinking that's going to be super expensive. So I'd rather just get it at retail and just get the regular edition, because you're not really getting anything special unless you really want those printed meeples. You know, they could be cool. You get 152 of them, you know, it's up to you guys. It's really a decision you have to make. In my opinion, it's just not enough and not much of a motivation to get it. That being said, I'm really excited to play it. Let's move to the next one. Alright, and up next we have Super Fantasy Brawl Round 2, which is just more characters and expansions for Super Fantasy Brawl, which is a pretty lightweight skirmish style game that came out I think 3-4 months ago, or got delivered 3-4 months ago. Alright, so before we start with this one, a couple of things. First, this was an extremely fast campaign. I think it was only 8 days long, so if you blink, you're going to pretty much miss it. And second, like a lot of projects I'm talking about today, man, the gameplay looks really good, but the incentive to back it, in my opinion, is just not high enough. But you know what, let's go through it anyway. Let's talk about it. Alright, so first let's talk about gameplay. I mean, I'm not going to dwell on this too much. You know, the reviewers are out there. You know, Tom Vassell really likes the game. The King of Average really likes the game. Just go watch one of the billion different reviewers out there, and you'll pretty much know if you're going to like the game by watching the gameplay and hearing their thoughts. But just my 2 cents, if you were going to ask me, it looks like a really fun, lightweight skirmish game. Things I really like is the drafting of your team at the start. Each of these characters play a little different, so the team makeup really makes a difference when you get them down to the battlefield, and that's a cool different dynamic that I really like. Second, I really love that it's all objective based. It's not skirmish, just defeat and bonk the other guys on the other team and win that way. You do get some points for doing that, but it's mostly by the objectives that are pretty much on the river, and they're sliding down. So by completing objectives, you'll get more points, and it's a race to like 7 or 8 points, and whoever gets there first is going to win. So that's a fantastic system. I really like it. And that's pretty much it. So some good stuff. I hope somebody in my game group eventually gets it so I can give it a shot. Another thing I'm going to say, blanket statement here. If you love your dice, this is not the game for you. There's no dice in this one. It's all card driven, so the cards that you draw are pretty much going to tell you who you're going to be activating and what their special ability is going to be. So that's why it's very lightweight. You know, it's really on maybe too much on rails, because you do have to decide what you're doing with the cards that you draw, and sometimes you're just not going to draw the cards you need. All right, but again, no dice, just card based. So keep that in mind if you want to jump in here. All right, so that's it I got to say about the gameplay. Let's talk about the value. All right, so for the value, so just something I'm going to be saying a lot today. The motivation and the incentive to back this is just not high enough. There's no stretch goals, no unlocks, there's no daily things. There's no reason to back it. In my opinion, for me, might not be for you, but a company saying, oh, you'll save $20-30 from retail is just not enough incentive for me to ever back a project. I'd rather just wait for the secondary market or get in retail later and pay a bit more, because then you'll get the reviewers that'll analyze and see who you match up with, and you see if you even like the game. All right, that being said, there are 3 different pledge levels. Let's go over each one because they are different enough. Let's start off by talking about the round 2 stuff. So if you are a returning backer, I think, in my opinion, this is where you're getting the biggest shaft. Because this is $50. The first Kickstarter I think was $50, and you're getting like half the amount of content here than the first game. I know obviously it is an expansion, you're never going to be getting the same value as a base game, but this seems a little underwhelming. You're pretty much just paying $50 for 9 miniatures. There's no that much other content in the game besides just miniatures. All right, and the exclusive stuff is just sleeves and cards. It's just not enough. So the value overall is pretty bad. And that even being said, they're saying that each of these boxes are going to be $20 to $25. So let's say $22 each. That's $66 in total. It almost matches up perfectly with the price if you get it in retail later on. So again, no real incentive to get this. Just wait till retail. You'll probably get it for less. All right, so there you go. All right, the next pledge level to talk about is the super fan pledge. I believe this is everything from the first Kickstarter, and the first Kickstarter was $50, which is an awesome price. And this one they tacked on $15, so it's pretty much the first campaign plus $15. I believe the only thing you're not getting is the big white box, but I could be wrong. Somebody can update the comments below. But what are you going to get for $65? This is a better value because if you add up all this stuff, they're saying in retail it's $135. I calculated it to $130. So it's $65 plus $35 shipping. So you're looking at $105 by paying it now. So in the end, you are saving, let's say, $25 overall, getting a brand new in retail. All right, but keep in mind, you'll probably be able to find it in the secondary market for less than $120, $115, $110. Going forward. All right, but it's not a bad. If you want to jump in, just get the first Kickstarter stuff, you can jump in here for less than $100. All right, and you'll save some money as you go. And the other pledge level to talk about, just to round this out, is the all-in, which is really expensive here. We're talking about $170. All right, but they're saying the retail is $295, so if you piecemeal it all together, it comes out to about $290. You are saving some money. It's still $170 plus $45 shipping, so you are paying over $200 in total for this one, so it is quite expensive. And again, there's 2 ways of looking at the value. First, if you compare it to retail, yes, you are going to be saving $50, $55, $60 than retail. But it is a bit misleading because one thing I never suggest you get in retail are sleeves and neoprene mats, and that'll drive the price down almost $70. You're looking at $220, $225. So, all right, if you do want the neoprene mat and the sleeves, then definitely it's a good price. You're gonna be saving quite a bit. But if you don't, you're not gonna be saving that much money. The other way to look at the value is if you actually compare this to other projects out there. Something I like to do whenever you're above $150, especially at $169, you're comparing to Primal, Oathsworn, stuff like that. The value is just not there. For this project, a lot of what you're paying for is just minis. There's not a lot of other content. There's not a lot of cards. There's no storybooks. All those other games, you're getting over 1,500 cards. You're getting storybooks. Getting apps. You're getting a lot of stuff. Development of the story and all that stuff. Voice acting, all that stuff. Here, it seems a bit lacking. What you're paying for is a lot of blinged out stuff like neoprene mats and sleeves, which is just stuff that I would never pay for anyway. So that's where I'm coming at this from. I would rather just wait till retail. Even if I'm a gigantic fan of the game, I probably save some money on the secondary market and stuff like that. So that's it for Super Fantasy Brawl. Let's go to the next one. All right, and next, and maybe finally, we're going to talk about Tiny Epic Dungeons with only 2 hours to go. All right, this one did extremely well. 41,000 backers. That's incredible. That's probably going to be in the top 3 amount of backers in a project by the end of the year in 2021. That's just a lot of people. Alright, so this is what happens when you mix a dungeon crawl with a Tiny Epic line of games, which has its adoring fans and people love it. You're just going to be printing a lot of money, and this just shattered probably the Tiny Epic highest funded game by probably a long shot. Alright, so let's go through this. Now, I'm not going to talk about any of the whole controversy with the cleavage and the butt shots and all that stuff. I really don't care. The company can do with that whatever they want. I mean, if they want to leave blood, cannibalism in their game, I really don't care. The publisher can do what they want. If they wanted to listen to the fans and change it, it is what it is. It's great that they're listening to people, but they could have done what they want. If you just didn't want it, you didn't want cleavage, you just didn't have to back the game. That being said, let's talk about this one. So, you know what? Let's talk about gameplay first. Before we get started though, I just have to sort of give you my history with the Tiny Epic line of games. I don't have any in my collection anymore. At some point I always traded for them in mass trades. I played them. Never a huge fan of any of them. I don't have any anymore. I think I've played all of them except for Tactics and Dinosaurs, I believe. I've played all the other ones. I'm just not a fan of the whole micro scale type thing with my mini things, a lot of iconography, a lot of abstractness in the games. I'm just never blown away. I would either think that the game is just fine or below average. You know, some terrible games in the system, like in my opinion, Kingdoms and Defenders are pretty terrible. Even the best ones like Galaxies are just okay in my opinion. I'd rather just play a regular sized board game. I don't see what the whole hubbub is about. But that being said, you know, I was a bit negative, but this is the Tiny Epic game for me if I were to get one, because you know, looking at the playthroughs, the rulebook, all that stuff, it just looks really good. I can really not find a lot of negatives to say about this game. It is a dungeon crawl, so some of the things I really like about it, the combat system is amazing. It's the whole Madara system where you're trying to hit a threshold, but every point above it is damaged. So that's a great, fantastic system that Madara has. I like the dice mitigation system with the energy. You can change dice up and down, so you have that mitigation opportunity every time. I love the dice system with the pluses. So even if you're trying to hit an 8, or you roll a 6, you get a couple of +2s, you get to a 10. Fantastic system, really engaging, really good. The weapon sets are great, and probably my favorite part of the game is the whole torch timer activation system. So it's a twofold thing. First, the torch is the game timer, right? So it keeps you on your toes. You have to keep moving so you don't just diddly-dallying, doing whatever you want in the dungeon. But also, it's the sort of activation round for the game. So it's not just a game where you're doing players, enemies, players, enemies, players, enemies. You really just follow the torch. So it's always players until you hit an icon on the track, then the enemies are going to go, and then the players are going to keep going, then the enemy. So it's a really cool system. I really like it. The only real things I can critique here, I have a couple of notes, is first, iconography overload. I know this is pretty much par for the course for Tiny Epic games, just a lot of iconography because of the form factor. But you'll probably get used to it, so it's not so bad. Second, I'm not a huge fan of the way you fight the last boss. You have to go on his card, and then you have to just keep moving around the card to try to get different bonuses and something like that. Not a huge fan. It's a bit of a convoluted system. I mean, it's not the best. Third, if you are just getting the base game, you are going to be running into the same goblins and minions over and over again. That's why you sort of want the deluxe edition. And probably the last thing to really say is, even though it's a Tiny Epic game, this game's going to take up a lot of table space just because it sprawls a lot. You're putting a lot of cards out there. Your play area has quite a bit. It's not going to take up as much space as a lot of other dungeon crawls out there. But, you know, even comparing it to like something like Jaws of the Lion, which is a smaller form factor dungeon crawly game, you know, even that game probably will take up less space than this one. So keep that in mind. Alright, so, but overall, the gameplay looks really good and I really want to give it a shot. Alright, that being said, let's talk about the value. I gotta go all the way to the top. Alright, now before we start with value, a couple of things you gotta realize about Tiny Epic series of games. The base game, historically, you'll be able to always find it in retail between $25 and $40. Alright, and there's pretty much no exclusives besides the promo deluxe pack that gets packed in with the deluxe version of the game. Alright, so pretty much everything you're gonna see here is what you're gonna be getting at retail. for a bit more of a cost. So that's why I would say never get the base game, obviously, because you're just not going to save that much money, and if anything you're probably going to spend a bit more. So what are you going to get for $25? You're going to get the heroes, the mats, the dungeon cards, the loot cards, the dice, so on and so on and so on, a couple of tokens, some upgraded bits, all this. But if history tells us anything, this is going to come to retail. Somebody can write down below if I'm wrong. I'm going to be wrong, but this is probably going to be like $35 in retail, because that's what the other Tiny Epic games sell for. All right, so some good bits in here. I like these components here, but it's just not worth it to get the $25 version, and you should never do that anyway when backing a game on Kickstarter. So now the one that most people are backing is most people are in the all-in, but the deluxe edition. So like I was saying, if you get the deluxe edition, you are paying $5 more. You're gonna get a little tiny promo pack afterwards, and that's gonna be right over here, the potions and perils. So for $5 you're just gonna get more cards, more bosses. So the bosses and the goblin add-ons are really necessary to add some variety to the games, even the minions. So you're adding quite a bit of content to the game, so it's a welcome change. But all this for $5 doesn't really seem worth it. It's just an add-on pack. There's just not much here, but it is what it is. But I think the best deal that you're possibly going to get is with the stories expansion. So all this put together, we're talking about $40. And I think you're going to be saving a lot of money here, because this stories pack in retail will be minimum $20, probably $25 when it comes to retail. So you're going to be saving quite a bit. You're going to double up the amount of heroes in the game, and this panda guy in the back is amazing. I really want to play with him. You're gonna get the story cards and just extra dungeon cards, extra loot cards, just extra content. Especially, again, the goblins and the bosses are much needed variety to add to the game, plus the minions obviously, and you get some cool looking bits as well. So overall $40 is not a horrible back. You add $10 shipping or $15, you're still looking at $55. It's about what you're going to be paying in retail, but you do get the extra $5 deluxe add-on and stuff like that. So it's not a horrible back. I just, in my opinion, don't see the point. I'd rather just wait till retail, buy secondhand. There's not much. Plus, being a Tiny Epic game, I never back their games, because every single math trade that I've ever been a part of, there's always dozens upon dozens upon dozens of Tiny Epic games being up for trade all the time. You can pick these up constantly, just because there's so many of these versions of these games all over the place, and people are constantly trading them. So keep that in mind as well. But that's basically what I gotta say about Tiny Epic Dungeons. Let's jump on to the last one.